So in this video, what I'm going to do is show you how to create a web page using Photoshop. Okay, now there's a bunch of different ways to go doing it, and honestly, this isn't like would be my preferred way of doing it. There's other ways that are far superior. There's lots of ways to make websites now that are much simpler, and the results are better as well. But it is one of the things you can do in here. So I think it's good to know how to do. And plus, once you know Photoshop, this might just be a nice quick way of making something. And so on and so forth. All right. So if you remember, basically this week you get to choose to do, you have to do an actions, which I already showed you how to do. So you have to make an action, which is just the watermark. And then the other thing you have to do is either this, making a website, or doing 3D graphics. And you can choose which you want to do. All right. Those are the two options. All right. So anyways, let's get to it. So a web page is actually a collection of a bunch of documents. So usually there's an HTML file. At its most bare necessity is an HTML file and images. Okay. But it's going to be all of that together. And if you have a website, there'd be multiple images and multiple HTML files. So you want to make a folder that holds all of it together in one solid piece. So before I even start making this, I'm just going to go ahead and just make a new folder, and I'm just going to call it Cone Site. All right. So this is going to be the folder that's going to hold my website. All right. Now, what you're going to want to do is just make a graphic, like a page, and make what you want your website to look like, just like it was one page. Just make it very graphic, and so on and so forth. So I already made one, so I'm just going to open up mine because I don't want to spend time doing this because you should already know how to do. You should already know how to make what I made here. Okay. So I made this. All it is, it's a bunch of layers in here, but there's nothing about them that's special. It's literally like, this is just a picture. And then there's this button graphic and these different graphics I made. There's nothing special about it. It is on multiple layers, but it doesn't actually matter in any sort of way. Okay. So you're just going to make a web, a new document, and then you can make it whatever size you want your website to be. So this one is, I don't even know. Let's see, image size. Mine is, let's go by pixels, 960 by 1200. So if you want to do that size, you can do that size, or you can do larger. Your monitor, typical monitor is 1080 by 1920 pixels. So this won't fill the screen, but that's fine. So that's what I did for my size. And I literally just made these graphics. Okay. Now, when you do go to make this, some things you're going to want to do just to make it work a little bit better. And, if you take web design, I teach that as well. We'll cover web design more specifically, but you're going to want to have like a heading and maybe a header and maybe a footer. Okay. So the header, usually you want to have like, the logo or something, and then your menu buttons. Okay. And then all the stuff inside would be stuff that, would be, about would be your content for each page. Okay. So this is going to be my home page. So I'm happy with this. I just named it home page. That's fine. And this is what it looks like. I'm actually going to save this as not home page. I'm going to save it as index. And I'll explain why we're naming it index in a second. Index. Okay. So it's going to be called index. Okay. All right. So what I want to show you first is slicing. Okay. Now, you guys remember what cropping does, right? So let's put it back on crop. But basically, it allows me to draw like an area, and it cuts. And now that's the image, right? So it just cuts everything out. So it's like I took a photo and just cut off the edges, and now that's the photo, right? So that's what cropping does. Slicing actually does something semi-similar. With slicing, it's underneath the crop tool. You see the slice tool. What it does is that it allows you to, like, let's say I was looking at this and I wanted certain things. Like, let's say, I like this graphic, and I want this picture, and I want this, okay? So you'll see the way that it works is that it's going to create two types of slices. You're going to have these ones that it auto-generates, which are these gray ones, and then the blue ones that you created, okay? Now, in order to make the blue ones, basically all parts of the image now have to be contained in a slice. So in order to support the slices you made, it makes other supporting ones that make that one possible, okay? Don't do what I'm just doing. I'm just showing you what this is. So basically it allows you cut it up like that, and then you can actually export out all the images. So I could do File, Export. Again, don't do this. I'm just showing you. Legacy for Windows, and then Save. And then I'll just save right to cone site, and I'm just gonna make sure this is just on images only. Call it index is fine, and then I'll hit, so it says images only, hit save, and then it will save them out. Okay, and I'm actually gonna undo what I did here because I don't really want any of that. I was just showing you. Okay, so I undid all my slices, but I just want to show you. So those slices that I made are now all of these pictures. So you can see there's the one cut I did, there's the other cut I did, and there's the other cut I did, and then all of the other slices that were created to generate those, okay? So it's kind of a way of taking a picture and basically cutting out the parts you want. But obviously, the parts that you didn't want still exist, right? You'd have to throw those away. You could look at it like, let's say that you had like a group photo of like all the coworkers of a company. You could like slice portraits out of each, you know, like do close-ups and cut out like the heads of all of them and then do like a bio and you could have text by it. It just allows you basically to take an image and cut it and put it into multiple other images. That's really all it's doing. I mean, you could do it a bunch of other ways, but that's the idea behind it. I don't actually want to use this in any way, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete that images folder, but that's what it does. We're going to do something a little bit more with it. What I want you to do, obviously it would be with yours, but I'm going to do it with mine, is that this is going to be my like home button, this crappy logo I made. So I'm just going to kind of cut and drag like this. So this will be a button. Wherever there's a button, I'm going to make a slice. So then I'm just going to Control plus, right? And we'll go here, like so. And I'm going to put I guess we'll start this way though. And I'm going to put a slice around each one of these buttons, like so. Okay. And I think that's all I want, right? I don't have anything. Yeah. So those are going to be my buttons, all right? Yay! And then that's good. Okay. So now if I were to slice this like we did before, it'll, you know, you'll see all these pictures. What I want to do is add functionality to these. I'm going to make these links. I'm going to make them hyperlinks. That's what they call it in the web. So I'm going to click on this, and you'll see the Slice Select tool. I'm going to double click on the first one, and it's going to pop open this window. Now it gives you a bunch of different options. The name is sort of irrelevant. That's just, I don't even know. We don't really use that for anything. The URL is what's important. So the URL is the Uniform Resource Locator. Basically, when you open up your web browser and you type in a web address, that's the URL. So this tells it where to go. So in this case, when I click on this, I want it to open index.html. Okay? So index.html, and then I'll hit OK. Now, the reason why we're doing index is that the home page of a website is always called index. So when you type in like google.com, there's that home page that you come up to, there's a bunch of pages underneath Google. The one that you open up is called index. When you go to or flywheelslice.teachmecone.com, when you click on that, there's a bunch of web pages. They all have different names like class 1, class 2, so on and so forth. That first one is called index, okay? That's how basically it works, okay? All right, so our home page, which is the page that we're seeing, we're just going to call that index, and then whenever I click on this, it'll just, when we're on the page, it's going to bring us back to this anyways, but that's where it's going to go to. It's going to go to index, and we'll hit OK. Now what I'm going to do is, I still have my selector, I'm going to go to my work, I'm going to click on that URL, I'm going to make another page like this, and I'm going to call it work.html. I haven't made it yet, but we will make it. Double click on this, I'm going to call this one services.html, and then courses. Oops, cancel. That got like shifted. There we go. Courses. I'm actually going to use my website. So I'm going to copy and paste my website in here. And then you'll see at least this working, at least initially. Okay. So this is actually going to open up a website. Hit OK. And then contact. I'll just go ahead and write contact.html. So your subpages can be named whatever, but the home page is always called index. That's the rule of thumb, all right? So we've now made those buttons, and I'm going to call this good for my home page, you know, whatever. This probably should be up higher, but you get the idea, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and save this. So to export this out as an HTML, it's the same thing I kind of showed you earlier. I went through it quickly, but you want to go to File, Export, Save for Web. All right, and what you can do is you can click on these individually and say the type of image you want it to create. But I'm not honestly all that worried about it. We're just going to leave the default. The GIF is good enough. I'm going to hit save. But this time, instead of it saying images, I want it to say HTML and images, because the HTML is the actual, that holds the content of a website. All right. And make sure settings is default settings. And and also make sure that you navigate. So I made that cone. No, where are you? I made this cone site folder. I'm going to make sure I'm inside of that folder. And the file name, because this is my home page, should be called index.html. Okay? And then hit save. Now, when I go to open this up, you will see, right? So there's that folder I made. When I open it up, you're going to see it says index.html. And inside of here are basically, it makes those slices of images, okay? But it reassembles them in the web browser. So I'm going to bring this over. Okay. Hang on a second. Okay. And you can see it's opened up inside of my web browser. And all it's literally doing is that these are all, you can see when I click and drag, these are all just the slices, but it reassembles them. And the ones that we put links on, these ones, so you see there's the picture, they have extra attributes. So when I hover over it, you can see how when I hover, it turns into like a clickable item. Now if I click on this, it's just gonna bring it back here, because again, it's called index, right? But if I click on work, it's gonna go nowhere because I don't have a work.html. I'll show you how to do that in a second. Let's hit back. But if I click on courses, remember I did a direct link to my website, it's actually gonna go to my website, which is pretty cool. Okay. Let's go back. All right. So we've got this working. I got a home page. Let's just make one sub page. Okay. So, yeah. And for yours, just do one home page. And if you want to do more than one sub page, you can, but just do at least one sub page just so you can see that it's working. Okay. So we'll call this good. This is my home page. It looks like that, right? So yay. Now I want to make a sub page. So to make the sub page, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use this as a template. So I'm going to resave over this. I'm just going to Control-Shift-S or File Save As or Command-Shift-F if you're on a Mac. And I'm going to call this one work.psd. Okay, so I already have the index one. This one will be called work. And we'll hit OK. All right. Now what I'm going to do is move some of these items around. So the only part I really need to keep is basically this top section. This needs to be the same. Everything else can go away. So I'm just going to use my select tool. I'm going to select this thing and delete it. I'm going to select this guy and we'll delete it. And I'm going to look for my about section. Where are you at? Right here. I'm going to select this. Come on. And I'm just going to trash it. Okay. And now I have basically a clean page. And this will be my work page. Okay. Someday it's just going to keep rolling. Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and start a new layer here. Put this right at the very top just so it's easier to understand. Or not. Don't do it, I guess. Okay. Whatever. It'll be right there. So I'm just going to go ahead and with my type tool, I'm just, no, not vertical. Come on. You can do it. Come on. There we go. I'm just going to go ahead and just do Arial black. Good. And I'm going to do 48. And I'm going to do white for my color. And I'm just going to write work. Examples, we'll call it. And we'll just call it work because it was the name that we had before. So we're going to call it work. Good. And I'm just going to quickly add a drop shadow onto it just so that it looks the same. Okay. And let's see. Spread way less, size way down. And let's, no, I have pretty dark. And then where's the opacity? There it is. And we want to go this way with it. And take the distance up a little bit. Just trying to make it match a little bit with what the original stuff was. Okay. We'll hit OK. And this will be basically my title. So I would spend more time on this, obviously, make it look a little bit nicer. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And, right. And then what I would do is just place images in here. So I'm just going to do File, and we'll just place Embedded. let's see. Let's use the pictures from my other stuff here. So I'll grab this one, and I'm just going to enter. I'm going to adjust them all afterwards. So file, where you placed, embedded. What was that one? That, okay. Place, okay. File. I'm just going to do 4 of them, but obviously I would do more. It only lets me select one at a time, unfortunately, which is kind of lame. Okay. File. One more. Let's grab, I don't know if I grabbed the element. Okay. All right, so those are my 4 images. I'm going to select all 4 of them and just hit Control T for free transform, or Command T if you're on a Mac. And I'm just going to make them smaller. Okay, that's a big jump. Let's say like that. And enter. Okay, and now I'm just going to kind of put this, oops, so I'm all selected. Click off. All right, put one here. And we'll put one down here. Oops. And then we'll put one down here. Good. And then I'm just going to line this one up with that one. Okay. So just imagine I did a good job. I know it's kind of hard, but just picture like I did. Let's actually center this a little bit better. Okay. You know, there. Okay. It doesn't look good, but you get the idea. Okay. So let's say this is my next page, right? So this looks accessible. I already saved as work.psd. So I'm just going to Control S or Command S if you're on a Mac, just to save it real quick so I have what I have. All right, good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to export out this. So I'm just going to do File, Export, Save for Web, Legacy, Save, and I'm going to name this one work.html. HTML images, all the rest of the things should be saved. Make sure you're in the same folder, and we should be right next to our index. And I'll hit save. And it wants to replace those. Oh, because it's trying to replace these images because they're the same. Let's not. I'm going to uncheck all these. There's no need to replace any of those. Place. Okay. That should still work. Okay. So now if I go here and if I open up index, it's going to pop over on the other side here. Okay. You will see there's our website, and when I click on courses, it goes to my site, which is great. That's fine. Back. If I click on work, you're going to see it opens up my work site, right? So that's where work is. And if I click on this, it goes back to index. So work, index. Okay? And you can make many subpages of that. You just have to make sure that you save your PSD each time you make a new page. Because if you don't, what it does is that the images that it creates here are based off of the name of the Photoshop document. So you'll see that some of these are called index, and then other ones are called work. They get that name from the PSD. Okay? But this is really good. Now, so obviously this is local. You can actually tell if you look here. See how it says file, users, blah, 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 blah. That's a local file path, as opposed to like my actual website, right? Which is Hypertext Transfer Protocol Secure, and then teach me code after the website. So that's obviously not the same thing. But you could take this theoretically and upload it, and then people could go to your site. You could also just send people this folder, this Cone site folder, like zip it and send it, and then this would be like a nice portfolio because they could double click on it, open it up, it would look like this, and then you could have like, pictures and things like that, and it'd be a way of kind of, it's got a little more pizzazz because it's somewhat interactive, right? Obviously, we could also just do an interactive PDF, which would probably be better, but still, it's pretty cool. So this is one of the options, things that you could do. Now, if you do decide to use, like I said, you have to do an actions. Like everyone has to do an action. You got to do the watermark. But if you do decide, but then besides that, the other thing, you can either do this web page, or you can do the 3D. If you decide to use this one, when you submit this, you need to take this. I need all of it, not just the work and not just the index and not just images. I need the whole thing. So to give it to me, You have to take this, you got to right click, send to, compress zip folder. Or if you're on a Mac, it's just right click compress. And then this folder, this zip folder, has all the stuff that's inside this. Like if I open it up, you'll see it's got all the stuff in it. Okay, so you would submit the zipped folder to me, not, you can't submit folders inside of Blackboard. You can only submit files. This is a file, so you can submit this file, and this file has all of the folders and the files and all that in there. Okay, you can't even do this. You can't even just submit all of these pieces because they're not going to be in the right order and it won't work. Okay, so you got to make sure that you submit this whole zipped folder of your site. Okay, so hopefully you got something out of that. Yeah. All right. So good luck.